Day 4, our last day in Rome, began with baked goods from a local bakery, and then we headed back to Piazza Navona. From there, we went to the Museum of Rome to take in some art, history, and gorgeous ceilings. Following our history lesson, we walked around the city and eventually ended south of all the touristy spots to the catacombs of San Callisto. These catacombs are the final resting place for over 500,000 bodies and many popes from 2nd to 4th century. Tourists, however, were only allowed to go on a tour of the second level of the underground cemetery, and the bones had been removed to prevent theft. Once again, I was not allowed to film, however, I was able to find this picture on Google. Once we left the bone ash covered tunnels, we got on a bus which drove us in a circle. We learned the buses in Italy are loud, and 3 Italian women can make it seem like the bus was packed, even though there were only 6 people on the bus, including us and the driver. We eventually made it to the Circus Maximus, and from there we walked around the city with no plan. We stumbled upon more ruins from around 1st century BC. Then we found Trajan's Column. The column stands at 34 meters or 112 feet, weighs over 53 tons, and was built in 113 AD. It also depicts 155 scenes featuring over 2,600 characters. We then got dinner and headed back to our Airbnb, which featured a nice compact fridge, dishwasher, cupboards, washer, stove and oven, a place to store all your utensils and cutlery. The kitchen was also the dining and living room, and it was all under a really nice old authentic ceiling, because that's how Italians do it. The bathroom was modern, and for some reason half the channels on the television only showed infomercials. The next morning, we left the noisy city of Rome and began our 2.5-hour drive south in our hybrid Toyota Yaris. Thus far, we had seen some of the most stunning creations man has ever made, but the second we left Rome, we were in a bowling lane with gutters made of mountains. Everywhere we looked, we saw mountains. With the reasonable speed limit of 130 kilometers an hour, which is really just a suggestion that no one follows, and the mountains to distract us, we arrived in Herculaneum in no time. On August 24th, 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted, completely covering the neighboring cities of Herculaneum and Pompeii. While Pompeii collapsed under all the weight of volcanic ash from the eruption, Herculaneum wasn't initially hit hard, which allowed many people to flee. Powerful surges from Vesuvius poured hot gases into Herculaneum in the following days. Though many were able to flee, many others waited for ships to arrive in boathouses along the shore. Eventually, the ashy gassy mixture made its way into the boathouses, preserving these people into history. After spending a couple hours at Herculaneum, we drove to the south of Mount Vesuvius to Pompeii. The 170-acre site is more than 3 times the size of the ruins in Herculaneum. It is quite amazing to walk down streets and into buildings built around 2,000 years ago, preserved the exact same way they stood when Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. At this time, Pompeii's population was 11,000. They had technology impressive even by today's standards. They had complex plumbing systems to discard unwanted water and easily bring in clean water. They had a large theater built in 2nd century BC and was even built so that all 5,000 people in the theater could hear casual talking from the stage, and it still works today. Even after 2 hours of walking around, there is no way we saw half of what the Pompeii ruins had to offer. It's estimated Vesuvius will have a massive eruption every 2,000 years, which means the days of this amazing place are numbered. In fact, since 2001, the Italian government has been creating plans every few years to evacuate the 700,000 people living around Vesuvius for when it erupts next. With that on my mind, I woke up the next morning and immediately looked out the window to ensure there was no smoke billowing out of the mountain. Everything looked good, so we walked down the street to the train station and ended up seeing a Fiat 500 parade. Now how Italian is that? The train took us even more south to the windy town of Sorrento. Known for luxury, lemons, and amazing views, Sorrento is a fantastic place to relax. And while on the hunt for food, I was given food. A lovely English couple just gave me a pizza because they bought two and they didn't realize how big they were. So I've got pizza now. We then decided to take a quiet bus down to the Amalfi Coast to the famous picturesque village of Positano. However, the bus ride was nauseating. The road hugs the mountain as it zigzags up, down, and around each mountain. Looking out the window to the right, you don't see road, you see little trees hundreds of meters below. The buses on this road own the road and they stop for nobody. The words traffic and laws have never been spoken in the same sentence in Positano before. Roads no wider than the average Canadian driveway are meant for traffics both ways, and pedestrians. This is the exact reason I chose not to drive here, and I'm glad I didn't. With that out of the way, Positano was gorgeous and a perfect place to watch the sunset. With the pastel-colored buildings clinching onto rocks, it's amazing Positano actually works, and it has worked like this for hundreds of years. Once the sun had set, we got on the scary bus and headed back to Sorrento to catch the train back to Pompeii. With so much history to digest from Rome and Pompeii, it was now time to indulge in some of the spectacular views Italy had to offer.